Lawsome by ConsultWebs. Breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm with your host, Tanner Jones.
Hello, everyone. Today on our show, we're talking with Melody Eagan. I've been looking forward to this conversation. The big topic here is women taking the lead in the legal profession. We're going to cover the struggles, the developments, and most importantly, the successes in that regard. Melody has decades of experience defending clients in high-stake catastrophic injury and wrongful death cases. Named on Benchmark Litigation's list of top 250 women in litigation, Melody is Lightfoot, Franklin & White's current managing partner and the first woman to lead the firm in its history. Melody previously served as president of the Alabama Defense Lawyers Association from 2012 to 2013. Only the third woman ever elected to the office, and she's also a member of the 2018 Leadership Alabama class. Melody's interests outside of work focus primarily on her family, her church, and music. Married to a trial lawyer, she's a proud mother and a classically trained musician. What a background, Melody. Thanks for joining us.
Excited to be here.
Let's jump right in. The concept of women in leadership roles, it's a growing topic, thankfully, and for good reason. I would love to talk a little bit about how this conversation is translated specifically into actions within the legal realm. From your experience in particular, have you seen things develop in this regard, this evolution, if you will?
Absolutely. Speaking from my personal experience, Tanner, when I look back 30 years ago, when I joined Lightfoot, I never dreamed that here I would be the managing partner of my law firm. Thinking back to the early 1990s, the practice of law was a male-dominated field. We had some female associates, but we had no female partners at the time. And thinking back even to the way that we used to dress to try to fit in with the men, we'd wear masculine jackets and even sometimes those horrible ties that we used to wear back in the 1990s. But over time, law firms have very much come to clearly recognize what the value of diversity in the organization is. And that any law firm, a law firm or any organization, whether it be a nonprofit or a corporation or whoever, is made stronger by having a group of individuals from different backgrounds and varying viewpoints coming together and collaborating and working as a team toward a common goal. And as the legal industry's recognition of the value of diversity has increased and evolved over, I'd say, the last 30 years, a similar recognition as to the importance of diverse leadership and women leadership in the organization has also developed. I would say that's been more recent, probably within the last decade or so.
And you've obviously seen, you have firsthand perspective here in this evolution. I want to talk on the challenges that you've seen. What would you say are the three biggest challenges as far as achieving universally more in gender-inclusive leadership?
First that comes to mind, and I can certainly speak to this personally as a wife and as a mother of children, is that, women get pulled into so many different directions and we can get stretched thin. And right or wrong, there are certain notions that are grounded in history and also just in practice about what men tend to do in the home and in the family and what women tend to do in the home and the family. And certainly in our home, and I don't think we're unusual, the lion's share of family and household responsibilities tend to be handled mostly by me as mom and as wife. And I would not change a thing about that. I want to be clear on that. I love being involved in my children's day-to-day lives and knowing what they're doing and all of their activities. But it can be very challenging for a woman who's a mother and also trying to be a successful professional to balance those two things, to balance her work life and to balance her home life. And in general, the impact of that day-to-day family management and the time constraints that it provides are greater for women than they are for our male colleagues. So not only is it overwhelming, but the fact is that when you have that pull, it limits a professional woman's time and her energy and her ability to network. It limits her time and ability to build those close relationships with her colleagues. and to do what it takes to rise up in leadership in a law firm. A second challenge that I see, Tanner, which maybe kind of dovetails with what I was just talking about, is that leadership in law firms historically and is today still mostly male dominated. It's mostly men. And the leaders of today in a law firm will sponsor the leadership of tomorrow. And in general, people tend to gravitate naturally towards sponsoring those who they have similar interests to or they have close relationships with. And when there's more men in leadership roles, then there tend to be more connections and networks for men to learn about opportunities and develop the relationships that are needed for leadership. It's the golf trips, it's the hunting trips, things like that. And so through those networks, men tend to build the rapport and the relationships that needed to advance in law firms different than what women have done. We certainly have seen improvements in that area as more women step into leadership roles. I think that more women get sponsored for leadership, for future leadership. I also believe that law firms' recognition of the value of diversity and inclusion has helped in that arena, but it still remains a challenge and a potential barrier to women rising in leadership. And then the third thing that comes to my mind is really more of a barrier that I would say women tend to place on themselves. And that is that women, in my opinion, often tend to be our harshest critics. We're hard on ourselves. And going back to my first point, women tend to think, oh, I should be able to do it all. And we tend to hold ourselves to this standard of almost an unachievable perfection, but none of us are perfect. And many women, even those who are highly successful, sometimes struggle with inner confidence. They sometimes struggle with insecurities. And then when you layer on top of that women are often cognizant that in the workplace, if they tend to be assertive or overly assertive, or if they are viewed as demanding, then they may be stereotyped as being aggressive or shrill or pushy. And so when you layer those different things on top of each other, women, in my experience, tend to be less likely to self-promote themselves in a law firm than what their male counterparts do. And on a side note on that point, there is a book that I read back years ago that I thought was an excellent read that I would highly recommend to any woman who's listening to this podcast and maybe has any of those types of feelings. It's a book called The Confidence Code. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's by an author named Katty Kay. And the book is all about how women of all ages and at all stages of their career, helping them understand the importance of confidence, learning how to achieve it. It really is an excellent read, and I would highly recommend it.
It's a great suggestion. Melody, thank you very much for, I know it takes some vulnerability to cover some of those challenges, and I can guarantee some of our listeners are hearing that and just nodding their head. They accept it. They've lived that. I'm curious, do you feel, just kind of coming back to that first challenge you mentioned and balancing the role of motherhood and being a wife in the home, but also being highly successful outside the home, does it get easier with time? Have you seen that?
You want to hear about my morning this morning? It's not easy, and it's never easy. And we truly become the master of multitasking. I joked about this morning, but this morning I had my first meeting with some of my law partners on something at 8:30 this morning. It was a Zoom meeting. By 8:30 this morning, I had worked almost 3 hours. I had made 7 sandwiches for my son's Boy Scout camp out for this weekend. I had done a load of laundry. I had cleaned up the guest room because my mother's coming in town tonight. I'd lined up who was going to take my son to his haircut today. And then I also had learned about velociraptors with my 11-year-old because today is an E-day at school and we went over his science lesson. So that's how we roll.
So it doesn't get any easier.
It doesn't. But, I think back and this was some advice that Years ago, a federal female judge here in Birmingham came and spoke to our women lawyers in our firm and was talking about the challenges of all the different hats that we wear. And she described it. She said, as women, we're juggling a lot of balls and we're trying to hold them all up in the air. But some of those balls, we have to recognize if they fall to the ground, they'll bounce. Some of those balls, if they fall to the ground, they're going to shatter. And so always focus on make sure you keep those balls in the air and protect those that are going to shatter. And you just have to let the ones that bounce fall and bounce from times. You can't keep them all up. And I thought that was excellent advice. It stuck with me.
I love that. And it kind of, it relates to your third point on the challenge of it's often every bit of a mental effort of just being okay with allowing some of those balls that are not going to shatter to hit the ground, and being just accepting that sometimes life brings us those seasons where we just have to do that. So I appreciate you sharing that example. I want to stay on the challenges piece for a moment, because there's one topic that I believe is still somewhat of a struggling topic, or a challenging topic is maybe a better way of describing that. And that's maternity leave. The stereotype that women are not decisive, or their voices aren't as loud as their male counterparts. And you name it, 100 other false preconceptions are still a challenge that women in the workplace are dealing with. But specifically maternity leave, and the whole concept of being a mother while still being a top performer within the workplace. How have you juggled the responsibilities? We've talked about this a little bit, but being a mother, how have you juggled those responsibilities, tackling, like, really just charging ahead of these stereotypes and hitting them wide open? What does that look like within the workplace?
I do think that it takes more when you are trying to wear all those hats. You have to go the extra mile. But I will say one thing is, and I think there's become more of a recognition of this, many of the traits that we have as mothers, or that we view as being mother traits, are often also traits of being an effective leader and being a great lawyer. Patience is one. As a mother, we sure have to be patient with our children. We also, as a leader of a law firm or in the practice of law, we have to be patient with others. Fostering teamwork's another one. In your family, you want to foster a cohesive team that works together. Same in the workplace. I would say positivity is something that, in your home, you try to stay positive with your children, even in the difficult times. As a leader and as a lawyer, even in times of adversity, you have to stay positive. Communication, that's another one. Listening, inspiring others, encouraging others, serving others. And as a law firm leader and a mother, one thing that really stands out is stepping back and letting others shine. It's not about you. It's about helping others thrive. And so all of those, it's interesting how they really kind of parallel with each other, but so many of those traits and those things about motherhood and women also make us more effective as lawyers and as leaders.
And I see that as well. So changing directions on us a little bit, Lightfoot, Franklin & White, which is based in Birmingham, Alabama, continues to be recognized each year, we see, for being an exceptional place to work. What roles do gender equality or inclusion, even diversity, play in the firm's culture, and how that has actually, worked toward promoting a great place to be at?
They play an important part. Culture and creating an environment where everyone, as part of our Lightfoot team, or we call it the Lightfoot family, when everyone understands that they are a valued member of our team, that they play an important role in our collective success. That's been an emphasis of our firm from day one, since we opened our doors in 1990. And I will attribute that in large part to our great leaders who founded our firm. Warren Lightfoot, Sam Franklin, and Jerry White always led by example, and they always instilled in our firm values like excellence and professionalism, but also treating each other and our clients and opposing counsel with respect, with empathy, with kindness. And they really did make an intentional effort to foster that positive, inclusive culture at Lightfoot where the leadership put the interests of everybody else above their own. And we have a term for it. We call it firm first, Tanner, but that is a fundamental non-negotiable value that really impacts everything we do, everything from the way that we work up our cases to the fact that clients are not an individual lawyer's clients. They're the firm clients. And it also impacts our compensation structure. We don't have origination. We have a different compensation structure, but it all is about putting everyone else's interests before your own. And from the time that I was an associate through today, I'd never doubted that my colleagues, I knew that they cared about me professionally, and I knew they cared about me personally. And they allowed me to be me. They loved me for who I was, and they wanted me to succeed. And they gave me those opportunities so I could grow, so I could learn, that I could do my best. And I'll say, my colleagues expected excellence. They were demanding of excellence, but they were never demeaning. It was always done in an encouraging way where we celebrated the good times and we supported each other in the rough times. And I can truly say that in my law firm, from the time I was a young lawyer through today, I have felt appreciated and I have felt loved. And that's not a word maybe you always use in a law firm, but I truly have felt loved. And it is something that we view as an important part of who we are. And so that's something that we continue to focus on. We're intentional about it. And it takes an intentional effort of everybody at the firm, but it really is a fundamental part of sort of we call it the secret sauce. And it's part of why we think Lightfoot is a special place.
I love that. It goes well beyond lip service, right? It goes well beyond just slapping a favorable message up there as a mission statement, but it's the day-to-day actions and how a firm's operating. And I see that there. So I love it. And I think that hopefully, and I'm seeing it too, but hopefully more and more law firms are able to commit to that and do more than just the lip service, but actually take action. Culture is a powerful thing.
You're right, but it's right. As a leader, you can't just talk the talk. You've got to walk the walk, and it takes not only words and messaging; it takes actions, and you live by example.
So I'm gonna ask you to reach back in the memory bank and start thinking a little bit about, what have you done personally to advance women in the workplace? Can you speak to any examples there?
Sure. When I think about it at our firm, I have to confess, I've been here longer than any woman in this building. So, I've been around the firm for a while now. And as I think back over the last, almost 3 decades and women that have come to the firm, and I always have focused on trying to make sure that those women are given opportunities to thrive and to shine and really recognize them. When they do something good, let it be known, celebrate it, because when others hear, wow, she's doing a great job on something for Melody, people are going to want to work with her more, and so it's really trying to encourage, to recognize, and to make sure that I'm intentional about giving them opportunities to work on a case, as well as to serve in a mentorship role, but also, more importantly, as you get more advanced in your career, a sponsorship role to young women to really help them try to actually work to position them into places where they'll be able to succeed and rise. Another thing, Tanner, that I think is important that I try to do is share with other younger women lawyers, or really all of my female lawyers, personal experiences that I've had where I messed things up, that I've made mistakes. I've done some boneheaded things in my life, but it's good for them to hear that someone who sits as the managing partner, who they may view, wow, she's got all this, to hear that I've screwed things up. I've messed things up. I have insecurities. Sometimes I feel like, wow, I don't know what I'm doing. That's good for them to hear, because we all have that inside of ourselves. And then the last thing, and this is something that fortunately our firm has had, is that really within our women lawyers, we have a very supportive environment. I have seen firms, and I have heard from others in firms, that sometimes women tend to compete with each other. I think the view is that there's fewer spots at the table for women, and so it's this competitive environment. But we've never had that here, and it's been an intentional fostering of that. We try to build a sense, or we have a sense of sisterhood amongst our female lawyers. We call ourselves the Wolf Pack, which Wolf is Women of Lightfoot Franklin. But we came up with that while we were drinking wine one day back in the early 1990s when we were all sitting around, and somebody said, let's call ourselves the Wolf Pack, and it stuck. But it goes to the whole concept of there's camaraderie and inclusion. We're here for each other. We protect our pack. And so that's something that really has been a value for us from a standpoint of hiring and retaining women talent.
It's clear to me how much you value leadership and the importance of good leadership. How would you describe or define your own leadership style within the office?
I would say, and I learned this again, going back to our founders, I would describe my leadership style as positive leadership. And as a leader, Tanner, I believe that your number one job is to drive that positive culture that we've talked about, a positive culture that energizes and encourages people, a culture that fosters relationships, that fosters collaboration, and also that fosters and empowers and enables people to grow and to do their best work. And it takes a lot of work. I mean, to be an effective leader of a law firm and to try to build and maintain that culture, it's intentional, and it can be challenging to take a group of people of diverse backgrounds and try to unify them into a team working toward a common goal. But it is something that I strive to do every day as a managing partner. And as part of that, I'm always mindful of putting others' interests before mine, knowing what the vision is and make sure everybody in the firm understands what that vision is. It's demanding excellence of myself, like we were talking about, living by example and knowing my actions matter and demanding excellence of myself and of my team, but doing it in a loving way. And it's also very much, and I'm big on this, honest, transparent communication with the entire firm. It is so important to be, as being an effective leader, to be transparent about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and also to listen to others, to listen to their ideas and know so that they know they are heard. And, constructive criticisms can be hard to hear sometimes, but it makes you a better person. And then ultimately, what I think of it is the way that I try to do my leadership style is boiling down to letting my colleagues know as a leader that I care about them, and it's about building trust in the organization. And when people in an organization know that leaders genuinely care about them and they know how they are contributing to the overall bigger vision of the team, their loyalty and their engagement is going to rise. And so that's why the way that I try to manage is very much building on all of those principles.
It makes sense, and it unifies the team, and it sounds, I guess, in a traditional sense, or at least looking through it, from a traditional lens, the whole idea of a diversified team often pushes against the concept of unity and rowing in the same direction. Yet you've proven that in the business model and being inclusive in that respect, which hopefully the listeners are able to hear and run with. I know we've talked a lot, Melody, about the struggles and the challenges that come with this. And yes, of course, anything worth pursuing is going to come with its own set of challenges. But let's dive more into the benefits for a moment. What results can firms expect in embracing this concept of having a gender-inclusive business culture and being encouraged to bring women to the top in terms of leadership and management roles?
First and foremost, it makes us stronger. As an organization, when you have a diverse team and you're bringing together different people with different backgrounds, they're going to approach problem solving in different ways. And because the lens through which we view the world shapes our reality. and what we see as reality. And that lens is impacted by your experiences, by your backgrounds, by your family and your culture. But value and I would say power is found when you can collaborate a team with those different lenses, with those fresh perspectives. Because when you do it, you're going to come up with more innovative approaches. You're going to come up with creative solutions for your clients and also for your law firm. Another thing about having a diverse team is that we better represent the interests of our clients through having that team together, because we're a trial firm. That's all we do. We're all litigation. And so we are advocates for our clients before judges and before juries. And when you look at our clients and our judges and our juries, they're diverse. They come from all kinds of backgrounds. And when we have a diverse team, we can better understand the needs of the client. We can better understand and relate to the perspectives of our audience, of our judges, of our juries, and better know how to convey what we want to communicate in a persuasive manner to them. And so that's another reason why diversity is so important. And then the final one is just having a diverse, inclusive organization makes the practice of law more fun. It's more entertaining. And life is more fulfilling when you're part of a team, of a collaborative team who's working together, who cares about each other, who comes from different backgrounds, and we all work together and want each other to grow and to thrive. It makes life a lot more fun.
Thank you, Melody. Anything else, any other thoughts or advice that you feel would benefit the legal professionals listening here?
One thing I was thinking about is if I were to go back in time and look at and be able to tell my, 24-year-old self when I started practicing law, sort of give them some words of wisdom. I was thinking about what would that be? And what I would tell myself is, Melody, don't judge your life based on what you think that others have and by always comparing yourself to others. Because if you live your life and your practice in the next decades of your career, if you live your life always comparing yourself to others who have more money, others who seem like they have more accolades, others who seem like they're better at this, that, or the other, you're never going to find happiness if you're always viewing yourself in that lens. But instead, what you should do is get up, focus on your gifts, recognize that what you have, that day of your life, that job you have, your loved ones, your talents, that those are gifts to you, and be grateful for those every day and love yourself for who you are. While you should always be striving to improve and always be striving to learn, if you live that life of gratitude and you're thankful for what you have and living where you are in that moment of your career, you are going to find more happiness and you're going to be much more satisfied in your career and your life. So that's what I tell myself.
Spoken like a tremendous leader and a wonderful mother. Great advice, Melody. Thank you for that. What's the best way for listeners to contact you?
My bio is on our website, which is lightfootlaw.com. Certainly feel free to email me, give me a call. My phone number's on there. I'd love to talk with anybody who would be interested in speaking.
Thank you, Melody.
Lawsome by ConsultWebs with Tanner Jones. For show notes, links, and info, go to consultwebs.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Watch for the next Lawsome episode to discover more breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm.